What up, friends? I'm James, your host, and today I'm going to be reviewing Green Day's newest album, Father of All. Motherfuckers. Green Day are indeed back after a 4-year-long hiatus since their last album, Revolution Radio. The band has been in an interesting position lately, with them trying out different themes and sounds over the past few years. Honestly though, for me personally, since 21st Century Breakdown, I do think Green Day have been on a sort of downward spiral as of late. The trilogy, while it had some good songs, notably on Dose, primarily on Dose actually, it was bloated to hell and easily could have been condensed into one solid album. Rev Rad, on the other hand, made a decent first impression, but honestly it quickly became very boring and very apparent that it was sort of trying to cash in on some of the previous sounds and ideas that they've worked on. It just didn't really sound like their heart was all in it. It tried to be a political statement a la American Idiot, but it was too surface level to get any sort of message across, and it wasn't very instrumentally hard-hitting to make up for the fact either. However, I may be kind of spouting an unpopular opinion here, but I do think that Father of All is maybe the hope for the band. It might be a sign of good things to come. Now, let me explain why. Father of All, the title track, kicks the album off on a sort of strange note. Billy's falsetto immediately becomes the focus here. It's a bit weird for the band, but his delicate tones contrasted to the sort of dirtier guitar and drum sound does have a nice effect. The transition to a more traditional Green Day style chorus does make each part of the track stand out too, and I really like that fact. The bass lines, especially on the pre-chorus, are incredibly fun, and it's something that we haven't really seen from the band in a while. I also really appreciate the fact that this song effectively establishes how this album is definitely going to be a sort of garage rock, garage pop album. I think it encapsulates the album's sound very nicely. It has a fun beat and groove that really support the lyrics of try not to let the troubles of America get you down, while also trying to care about the issues. It's a fine line that this song is trying to balance, I think. This one's definitely a favorite of mine. Another bombastic tune follows right after in the form of Ready, Fire, Aim, and this one honestly to me is just as fun. The claps are a sort of motif of this album across many songs, and they give the album a sort of fun, party-like energy that I really like. I love the addition of the keys as well to support the beat and also distinguish it from the previous track. The background vocals are also very fun, and honestly this is probably one of the catchiest songs on the entire album. The lyrics are simple and hold a simple message about people talking without thinking. It's a bit ironic in that he's not, spouting this very elaborate message. He's using simplicity to combat simplicity, but I do like that sort of irony in a weird way. Oh Yeah is probably my least favorite song on the album. This sort of clean alt-rock stuff is exactly why I felt that Rev Rad fell flat. The synth tones aren't nearly as energizing and uplifting as the keys on the last track as well. The simplistic instrumentation on the verses, combined with the Joan Jett sample, don't really add much to the track overall. It's also one of the longer tunes on the album, but it doesn't change things up nearly enough to justify that runtime. It's just very repetitive, in all honesty. I do think that the lyrics about school shootings, societal pressure, and fame, and what they have to say about those things are interesting, but the track is just so boring to listen to. It's like, it just doesn't give you a reason to pay attention to the lyrics. Stab You in the Heart is also one of my favorites on the album. It's very reminiscent of 60s rock and surf rock. They experimented with this sound before in Foxborough Hot Tubs and a little bit on Dose as well, but I just really love how they did it here. I love the energy. There's a lot of parts of this song to love. It's fast-paced, the combination of light and heavy riffs, and the return of the supporting background vocals and claps. Everything that I really liked about this album sound overall is present in this song. It's very well-rounded in that regard, and it even comes with a very welcome guitar solo and some harder riffs to close out the track. The lyrics telling a tale of someone killing his partner because they cheated on him is pretty wild, but it does fit the aggressiveness, and it does have that sort of manic story-like energy that is present in a lot of garage rock songs and stuff like that. Sugar Youth is honestly another one of my least favorites. This track is the epitome of business as usual for Green Day. There's fairly familiar riffs and song structure, and honestly uninteresting lyrics too. All of this just really drags down the song. And honestly, the sort of quick pop-punky nature of the track is done better on songs previously, like Father of All and even Meet Me on the Roof. Junkies on a High is a pretty interesting one. Honestly, for me, it's probably the only slow song on the album that actually works. The keys actually add a more dire element to the track this time compared to the others, and Billy's lyrics of wondering whether he'll be the next rock and roll tragedy, it's pretty dark, and it creates this sort of foggy soundscape, especially with him talking about his substance abuses and stuff like that. It's kind of heavy. The addition of the picking strings and electronics that come in here and there as well, they make this song one of the more standout tracks, I think, in terms of instrumentals. It shows that not everything is fun and wild, it shows that not everything's always a game. It's very different for this album, and I like how it stands out because of that. Take the Money and Crawl is another favorite track of mine. It starts with this sort of bluesy, Motown-esque intro before just breaking into a very culminating sounding punky party of sorts. I love the subtle synth in the background that adds an element of structure to the track, along with Billy's falling vocals and the distortion that's added to them. In fact, there's actually a lot of fun, distorted riffs and layers that give this track a bit more of a layered feel compared to some of the previous ones. It's a much more full sound overall. There's just very fun instrumentation backing some pretty humorous, almost Scarface-style lyrics about living life on the edge and stuff like that. It's fun. Now, with Graffitia, the closing track, there's not much to say about this, to be honest. Lyrically, I do think it's one of the better tracks, dealing with working-class factories being shut down and police brutality and the murder of African Americans. I mean, it's pretty relevant in our social climate. However, I do think it should have had a much more aggressive instrumental to actually back these lyrical topics up. Ending a fast-paced and an energizing album like this with a poppy, slower song is a bit of a letdown, honestly, no matter how good the lyrical content is. Now, while Father of All is a bit of a mixed bag, I do think it shows Green Day kind of getting back in the game. It does show them, in my opinion, on the up and up. Compared to their last few releases, ever since 21st Century Breakdown, it really just feels like the band seems to be just having fun making music. There's no heavy-handedness without, the lyrical substance to back it up. There's no bloated track listings or anything like that. It's just a quick jolt of energy, and I think it was done overall pretty decently. If the album were any longer, it probably would have wore out its welcome, but they knew what they wanted to do, they kept it short, and I think the album's all the better for that. I do hope they keep this trend up, and instead of trying to create this grand epic or something like that, they should do what works, do what comes to them naturally, and if it is a grand epic, that's great, but make sure every track counts, because we don't want a repeat of the trilogy. Overall, I'm feeling a decent 6 on Green Day's Father of All. Now, of course, we do have to talk about the album cover, and I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. They're obviously trying to go a bit of a punky route and sort of scribble all over American Idiot, their best-selling album and all of that, but it kind of emits boomer energy a little bit, especially the promotional cycle for this album, because that's big boomer energy, but that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about album covers. But yeah, I don't like this album cover. They could have done this way better. They could have went the Foxborough Hot Tubs route, kind of went totally 60s. There was plenty of ways that they could have done this without the fucking unicorn, okay? But those are my thoughts on Green Day's Father of All. What did you think about this album? I know this one was kind of controversial, so do tell me what you thought down below. And until the next one, farewell.